Tonight I'm going to be interviewing Cilla Black, the greatest British star of them all. She cracked pop music, she cracked TV. We are talking about somebody who was fabulously successful, but also facing real human drama and tragedy. I don't think anybody really knows what being Cilla has been like for her, and I want to find out. She can be a bit of a diva. She's very tough. If I rattle her cage, anything could happen.
Piers, that was like the walk of shame. It really was.
You're the queen of Saturday night TV, Cilla. You're back on Saturday night TV. How are you feeling?
I think it's really nice. It's like a bit like riding a bike. You know, I walked into the studios today and I thought it was fabulous. I'd arrived home.
And the weird thing is, we're following X Factor tonight, and in a funny way, you pioneered that kind of TV. And then it took over. I mean, everything on Saturday night now is talent show, reality, and so on. Do you feel guilty or proud of that?
Yeah, it's all my fault, isn't it? I feel very proud. You know, I take pride in what I did. A surprise, surprise, brought people from all over the world to reunite with their families and friends.
You're aware of shows like X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, obviously, they're huge shows. When you see the contestants, I mean, how do you think you would have fared as a young 17, 18-year-old?
I would have won it hands down. I would have been next. Yeah, you know, the thing is, you've got to remember, I wanted to be a pop singer. I wanted to be a singer. And I wanted to perform from the age of 3. I remember when I did become #1. It was the most marvellous feeling ever, until I went home down Scotty Road. And there was this woman, and she thought she was insulting me, but I was just so thrilled. But she shouted over to me, "You think you can sing? You're not a patch on your mother." Which was great. I mean, that wasn't...
And that's when you realised fame is a double-edged sword, right?
Well, I guess it was, but I enjoyed the fame so much.
You still enjoy it?
I love it, I love it. I can't stand these young people going out today. They fall out of clubs at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they, you know, shove their hand out and attack the photographer. Hey, if you don't want it, don't do it. It's as simple as that. I mean, I go out, and when I go out, I fully expect to be photographed by somebody, but not on a train. On the Eurostar. I went to Paris with Cliff. He was sleeping, and he had his mouth open, you know. And I could see, because of all these blooming phones these days, you know, they were taking photographs, and I'm kicking him on, you know, and he never woke up. Nothing anywhere in the press. On the way back on Eurostar, I fall asleep, mouth akimbo, and I end up in Heat magazine.
You see, Cliff Richard's always been a jammy little sod, hasn't he?
He has. But even with the mouth open, he
still look pretty
good.
You and Cliff, I mean, did it ever come close?
More chance of sleeping with you. No, I wish.
What's stopping you two?
It doesn't fancy me. I mean, it's been a one-way situation. I mean, I adore Cliff. I absolutely adore Cliff. You know what? He looks great undressed. He's got... Oh, girls. I'm drooling. I really am. I am. I literally have to do this.
So you're not really ruling it out completely, are you, Cilla? There's a little candle burning there. Has gone for years.
Forever. Oh, it's an eternal light. It is.
Despite not getting your way with Cliff, you definitely had other strings to your bow, didn't you?
Like what?
Cilla's incredible career has stretched over almost half a century.
Cilla is somebody who will never turn right once she gets on a plane. It's left, champagne, caviar for her.
She's identifiable by one name instantly. There's only one Cilla, thank God.
She believes and believes that she has a God-given talent, and she does.
As a singer, she hit the big time with the help of the man who made the Beatles.
She was in the Brian Epstein stable of artists, but Cilla was clearly such a big favourite of his. He adored her.
She could really belt a number out.
And her success was to extend to the small screen, where she was the highest paid and most watched host on television.
She was an ITV star. It was a bit like working with the Queen.
Cilla is one of the old-school divas.
She had seen it before, she had done it before, and she would always win.
Something she proved live on air in 2003, when she gave blind date producers the ultimate surprise surprise.
Throughout the rehearsals, Cilla had had a twinkle in her eye. It was like she was in a very sort of mischievous kind of mood.
I'm going to have to admit it now. She phoned me up during the day and she said, I might be saying something tonight.
What we had rehearsed during the afternoon was that she was going to say Happy New Year to the audience, and the audience was going to say Happy New Year back. Well, she did the Happy New Year, she did the hello and welcome, and then...
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very special live show because this is going to be my very, very last series of Blind Date.
The world of show business is still reeling today after Cilla Black's surprise announcement that she's quitting Blind Date after 18 years.
She knew exactly what she was doing and chose her moment, performed it brilliantly. Deal done. I've done what I wanted.
I remember watching that live, and I was shocked. I thought, this is not scripted. I could just tell there was an atmosphere. When you look back on that, what are you thinking about it now?
Actually, I'm not proud. I think it's the most unprofessional thing I've ever done. And I remember saying to our Robert...
Robert is your, just to remind people, is your son.
Is my son and was looking after me and my manager at the time. I said, I'm either going to... He said, do it at the end. You know, it's a live show. Do it at the end. And being the savvy person with live television that I am, I said, they might have run out of time. I won't have time to do it at the end. And so I thought, look, Robert, I'm really undecided about this. If I don't make this announcement within the first 10 minutes of the show, I ain't going to do it. Anyway, I just heard the Blind Date opening music. Da-da, da-da. And I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I'm glad I did. It was time.
It was shocking, Cilla. I mean, no one had done this. This was real star power, because ratings had gone down a little bit, and there was speculation in the press about a younger successor coming in and so on. And I thought Cilla will not put up with this for much longer. Was that kind of what was going through your head?
No, it was really the change of the format. It wasn't the... You see, my thing is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They'd stop me going over and saying, hello, number one, what's your name and where'd you come from? Two, you know, here are 3 boys and girls or whatever.
How much of what you did that day was, if you're honest, revenge for the way you felt you were being treated?
No. I've never, ever, hand on heart, I've never, ever done anything out of revenge. It was just time. It was, you know, I was approaching 60 years of age. Because you've got to remember also, not apart from changing the show, I mean, they were changing the scheduling, and they replaced it with football. I do remember phoning Charles Allen one day when the football was on.
I heard about this. Didn't you? You basically put the arm on him, didn't you? I mean, he was the boss.
Did.
He was the boss of ITV.
He was the boss of ITV. So I phoned him up on his mobile. How are you, Charles? Anyway, About this football, I'll tell you something. Either you take the football off or I'm not going in the studio. And they took the football off.
When you'd done it, how did you feel?
It all happened in slow motion. What did she say? Did she say what I think she said? But, you know, I did the show. I mean, I've not seen... That's the first time I've ever seen that clip of me retiring. No, because it was live, and I just haven't seen it before.
I mean, I can
ever.
see you almost, not really cringing, but like recoiling slightly from the enormity of what you realised you were watching. It was a huge deal to do.
Yeah, but I was good, wasn't I?
You were good. It was a great resignation.
All I can remember is two women talking about their babies. And I had none.
When did you think to yourself, I'm going to be a pop star?
Really, since that's all I wanted to do from the age of 14. And I was literally waiting. I did believe, you know, my fairy godmother would come along. Little did I know it was in the shape of Brian Epstein. But I really did believe in the whole Cinderella story, that, you know, someone would come along and make me a star.
Was it, I mean, was performing to an audience for you like a drug?
It really was, actually. I was hungry. But the only thing I've ever been addicted to.
Have you ever had the buzz that you get from performing to an audience in any other way?
No, I don't understand the question. That's the...
Let me spell it out for you. Have you ever taken real drugs, Cilla?
I did try once in the 60s.
Did you?
Yes, I did. It was in a cigarette thing.
Marijuana?
And I didn't smoke. Probably pot, yeah.
It could have been something else. Did you start running around madly around the stage? Or?
No. Oh, no. It wasn't on stage. No, I wouldn't do that on stage.
You started to play the clubs in Liverpool, and it starts to go really well, and you're getting a big fan base locally, and then an incredibly important man arrives on the scene, and that's Brian Epstein, who was, of course, the guru behind the Beatles. Liverpool in the 60s was the epicentre of the pop world, and a young Priscilla White wanted to be a part of it.
Cilla was always got up with all of the bands to sing, because she was great. We always used to shout the audience, "Let Cilla sing, let Cilla sing," and of course Cilla obliged.
Her voice caught the attention of Beatles manager Brian Epstein, who signed her and changed her name to Cilla Black.
Cilla was the only female in Brian's stable, which was phenomenal.
Cilla, do you think you could have got to the top without Brian Epstein?
No, I don't think so.
Cilla was lucky the fact that Brian found her, but Brian was also very lucky that he found Cilla, because in Cilla he found a unique talent.
Under Brian's watchful eye, Cilla recorded with legendary producer George Martin and took the charts by storm.
Cilla must have been so thrilled because she came through and burst onto the scene with those hit records of hers.
Brian had become her mentor and the guiding light of her career.
The relationship between Brian and Cilla was pretty special. I mean, he adored her.
She really definitely looked up to him for advice, and I think there was a really good friendship there.
But that friendship was tested in 1967 when Brian focused more of his time and effort on the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album than on Cilla.
It was the launch of this unique, iconic album, and Brian was very busy with that. His health wasn't great, and I think that there was certainly maybe Cilla wasn't getting as much attention as she might have done or she should have done. And there was a little upset.
But what Cilla didn't know was that behind the scenes, Brian had been working hard negotiating with the BBC on her very own TV show.
This was Brian's plan for her. I don't think she knew about it at the beginning.
The BBC were desperate to sign her, but before Brian could tell her the good news, he was to die unexpectedly. Cilla's unsigned contract was found next to his body.
He put her on that path, although sadly he wasn't able to see it.
Must have been a very bittersweet time for you, that.
Absolutely. I remember I was in Portugal, actually, with Bobby and Tom Jones. He was on holiday there too. And we went out clubbing, and a waiter came over and said to me point blank, your manager is dead. And, you know, Bobby went to deck him. Because if that was a joke, it was a very bad one. And it was Tom Jones, who said, hang on a minute, and just went away. And I was just so totally stunned. And came back and said, look, it's all over the radio. It's true. And of course, I came back immediately. Yeah, it was terrible. Really. I mean, he was only 32.
Yeah, a real tragedy. What kind of guy was he?
Oh, I loved being with Brian. You know, he had this air about him, this commanding air.
How did you meet Brian?
It was John Lennon who told Brian about me. I went up to Ringo and I said, thank you so much for telling Brian about me. He said, I didn't tell Brian about you. It was John Lennon.
What were they like, the Beatles?
Oh, they were great. When you see Paul on the telly, he's just the same. To me, he's just the same kid that he was in Liverpool. You know, they were just mates. You know, we were all together. We all started together. We all came down to London together, which was fabulous. And then that was what I really loved.
Your first audition with Brian Epstein didn't go very well, did it?
No, it didn't. Well, it was over the water for a start. In Birkenhead, the Beatles were playing the Majestic Ballroom. I said to John, well, let's do Summertime. And I don't know whether he changed the key.
You're not going to blame John Lennon now, are you?
I am. No. I was terribly, terribly nervous because I knew I'd never, ever done an audition before. Ever. It was not in my key. It was too high. And so I actually walked off the stage, literally walked off the stage and got the next ferry home. I didn't even go and see Brian.
Did you think that was it? Did you think you'd blown it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And it wasn't until 9 months later that I was in a club called the Blue Angel. And it was a modern jazz band on there. And they said, would I like to sing with them? So I did Della Reese's Bye Bye Blackbird. I didn't know Brian was in the audience. And he came up to me and said, why didn't you sing like that at the Majestic Ballroom? I said, because... I actually said, because I was singing tonight with proper musicians.
Do you think that you would have achieved what you achieved without Brian?
Yeah.
That's what I love about you, Cilla. You have this unshakable self-belief, don't you?
I do.
I mean, I like that. I'm the same. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, who the hell's going to?
Exactly.
When he died, you need a manager.
Yeah.
And the perfect person is there to pick up the pieces. And that was your future husband, Bobby. Was it hard having your lover as your manager in those days?
Who said I was a good Catholic girl?
Well, no fumblings by the railings, or?
Are we talking sex here?
Whatever you want to talk about.
Well, you're not getting it. I'm a 66-year-old pensioner. I've got 2 sons backstage as we speak, puking into a bucket. The idea of you asking me about my sex life.
We have both had sex, and so's most people in the audience. This is not an uncomfortable
Well, I
area.
found all 3 of my children under a cabbage leaf.
Let's pick up the story of the late 60s. You've been a huge pop star, outselling anybody else in the country, and you have your own new BBC show.
Step inside
when she was signed up to do her Cilla TV series, she apparently said, I want me, to produce it. Now, the reason for that was when she appeared on the Billy Cotton show, she did the usual pop singer bit of turning up half an hour late. And I gave her the biggest rollicking she's ever had. She says the biggest one she'd ever had in her life.
Realising that TV was a different ball game, she really put the hours in.
One of the things we did right at the beginning was to rehearse 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
She learnt her craft while she was working, and she did it very well.
I'm a poor man's daughter from across the railroad track.
And the hard work paid off as the Cilla show became an instant hit.
It became so successful and so important that any major star had to do her show.
Mr. Cliff Richard!
It seems to me inevitable, with hindsight, that she would be probably the best known, best paid TV presenter that I think TV's ever known in this country.
In 1969, Cilla married her long-term boyfriend Bobby and soon gave birth to their first son. But in a time when mother stayed at home, Cilla was determined to keep her career on track.
Cilla went back to work quite quickly after she gave birth.
And many people criticised her for it.
I think Cilla was ahead of the trend because I think she had a nanny who looked after her 3 sons. And she went, because she was on tour sometimes, she was in studios recording TV shows. People may have looked down on it then, as, you know, how can she do this?
We were sent postcards and telephone calls were very exciting, and, you know, we never regretted that they went away. You just accepted it, and it was always wonderful to see them when they did come back. It was like Christmas.
At the time, it was quite a big thing for you to do what you did. I mean, you were called, you know, a rotten mum by some people. How, you know, when you think back to what you did, I mean, did you feel guilty through that period?
I kind of did. I remember when I had Robert, and I fully intended to take 6 months off. And you're really going to think this is weird. But after a month, I would put on one of my sequin frocks and give him his bottle, because I was really having withdrawal symptoms. I mean, you've got to remember, motherhood was a new thing to me.
Was your career more important to you, if you're honest, than your kids were at the time?
No, because, look, when I got married, I fell pregnant almost immediately, and I still had all these contracts to fulfill. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it, and I was doing it for them anyway.
Do you think you got the balance right?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I didn't want to let people down, and I wanted to honour my contract. And plus the fact the stage was my drug.
After the birth of your first 2 sons, you fell pregnant again, and at 7 months you gave birth to a daughter that was much sought after. And
27 weeks.
And
I was working at the time. I was in Coventry, and I remember it. Well, obviously I remember it. And I was only doing 1 show that night. And he said, Bobby said, come on, let's go to the pictures. And during the movie, you know, I got this pain, and I was blaming Bobby. I said, you made me rush my lunch to come and see this. I've got indigestion now. And I did the show, still, you know, little niggly bits. And then at 3 o'clock, there was just something. I went into labour. And I thought, I'm going down to London, you know. And Bobby said, no, you're not. We're going to the nearest hospital. And that's when I just went into full labour, and it was awful. And my specialist who was looking after me came up, actually, all the way to Coventry to be with me. And it was just awful. And all I can remember is I could hear in the next room two women talking about their babies. And I had none. It was awful. Awful. Yeah, it was terrible.
And she lived just literally a couple of hours?
2 hours.
And you called her Ellen?
Ellen, after me Auntie Nellie. Yeah, no, I was awful, really, because she had to be registered in Coventry, or was registered in Coventry, and Bobby had to drive all the way back up there, and he came back with the birth certificate, and it was Helen. And I said, no, I don't know who Helen is. It's Ellen, after my grandmother and my Auntie Nellie. And he drove all the way back to get it changed. Wasn't I awful? But no, it was important to me. It was very important to me.
I read you saying once that you never get over something like that, and clearly I can tell...
No, you don't. And you blame yourself. Maybe if I didn't work, maybe I didn't do all that stuff, maybe if I rested. But I mean, I worked through all my other pregnancies, so why should this one be different? I don't know. Maybe it was nature's way. I actually said to Bobby, you know, why me? And he was very tough with me. He said, well, why not you?
Do you ever wish you'd had a daughter that would be around you now? Because I've got 3 sons.
Yeah.
And you've got 3 sons, and they're great
Yeah.
sons, but they always say that daughters bring something else to your
I
life.
often think, you know, what Ellen would have been like, obviously all the time, you know. But now I've got 2 great grandchildren. I've got my Lana, who's 2. And it was the greatest joy to me, my grandchildren are today. Very uplifting. And I think, oh, gosh, and I do think, you know, Bobby would have loved this. You know, he really would have loved this.
How much of the current Cilla I see before me was the Cilla that was the way nature intended?
Very dare.
What would you say are your faults? If you're being really brutal.
A big gobby. A big gob.
Big ego?
Yeah, you have to have but that's not a criticism. That's okay.
You think you need it in show business?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's why it's called show business.
I mean, as somebody like me, renowned for my modesty, I can't imagine what it's like to have a big ego, obviously. But I am interested in that, because it always struck me that most people in the business who have huge egos actually tend to be chronically insecure.
I have 2 personalities. I have this show-off and confident one. And then I do have that quiet one. And I suppose the insecure one. Nothing to do with my work, but if I enter a room full of people, that's where I feel insecure. I like to be with somebody. I don't want to enter, I'd never enter on my own.
Really?
No, 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 no.
What's the private Cilla like? We all know this Cilla.
I like it when, you know, I go back to the house in the country and, you know, just walk around the garden. Bobby's planted underneath the willow tree as ashes. And, you know, sometimes I have a talk to Bobby there. And I like being on my own, actually. But when I'm out, I'm out. When I'm on, I'm on.
Let's go back now to the very public Cilla, and particularly the TV Cilla that we came to know and absolutely love.
In 1983, Cilla joined ITV to host Surprise, Surprise. For the first time, a star of the show wasn't just Cilla. The public was to take centre stage.
After 42 years, come in, your son Paul.
Surprise, Surprise was a massive hit with viewers, but there was a brand new dating format which was to propel Cilla to even greater heights.
Blind Date was one of those programmes that was irresistible.
Right, being a bloke, I guess you like your football, is that right?
That's right, Cilla.
Excellent.
Everybody had to watch it, so if you were going out on a Saturday evening, you couldn't go out until the end of Blind Date.
Cilla was at the peak of her career, a career expertly managed by her husband Bobby.
They grew up together, and it's that kind of relationship where they went through so much together. They navigated the way through the initial stages of fame. Even though she was, you know, the star, my dad was very much part of that, and it was a team effort.
Cilla and Bobby had made it, but the good times weren't to last. In 1999, Bobby was diagnosed with cancer.
It changed everything. Everything. He did fight it, and, you know, he did, you know, have his victories within that journey, and yeah, it was a really difficult time, and, you know, incredibly, my mum carried on filming Blind Date during that time as well.
Bobby lost his battle 3 months later, and devastated Cilla put on a brave face.
Bobby's passing was quite terrible. She missed one recording of Blind Date, and then when she came in the next week, she said to me, "Would you tell all the studio I can do the show if nobody comes up to me and says anything about Bobby?" And so she walked in the studio, got a standing ovation, did the Blind Date recording, got another standing ovation, and I picked her up at the back of the stage and walked out of the studio. And as we walked out of the studio, she said, "Now back to reality."
Yes, it was actually. Blind Date at the time was my lifeline. For that 90 minutes, I could escape. I used that to escape the horrible reality that was going on around me, and not knowing what I could do about it, and couldn't do anything about it. That was the feeling helpless is the worst thing in the world, you know.
The loss must have been massive to you, because it wasn't just your soulmate, your husband, your lover, all those things, but this was the guy that did everything professionally for you as well.
Everything. Everything. I didn't know how to go to an airport on my own. I did know, actually, on the night that I'd found out that he'd had, on the daytime that I'd found out, you know, he was literally given 2 weeks to live. 2 weeks. And I came back home to Denham, and we had dogs. Well, Bobby walked the dogs at 10 o'clock at night to put them to bed. And I phoned Bobby up in hospital in floods of tears, saying, "I don't know how do I walk the dogs? I don't know how to do this." A silly thing like that. And he was comforting me, saying, "They'll walk you. They know the route. They will walk you." And that was just the start. And I thought to myself that night, gosh, I've got a long haul here. If I don't even know how to walk my own dogs, what is the rest going to be like? He never saw me cry. Never saw me cry. I'd go out in the garden and do that. And then I'd look at all these flowers and think, he's not going to see these next year. And that was hard. It was hard. It really was hard.
Did you have moments when you thought, I can't survive on my own?
I did get angry when he died, especially when he'd send me on duff dates. You know, these, because I did go dating about 2 years after, and oh God, they were the worst. They were a disaster. And I would say to him, you know, why are you sending me these duff men, you know?
Well, didn't Bobby say to your sons, he didn't want any bloke going anywhere near you, and they would have taped them out?
He wasn't ill when he said this. He said, "All right, boys, if anything ever happens to me," and the boys would go, "Oh, Dad, you know, oh, Dad. No, I want you to know, I want your mother to be happy. But if she brings home any fella to this house, I want you to knock 7 times of..." I can't say the swear word, out of him.
You said this about Bobby: the real secret of our marriage was that Bobby never let anyone near me.
He wouldn't. If Bobby would have been in my dressing room and somebody would have knocked on the door, because I used to hear him. "Is Cilla there?" "Yes." Can I see her? No. And then close the door. He just would not let anybody
I heard
near
he was
me.
so jealous that he used to, you know, if blokes got too fresh with you, he'd take them out.
He would.
Was it ever stifling, his protectiveness towards you, or did you
no,
always...
I love that.
You always
I love a man to protect me. No, that's what I miss, actually. I miss the protectiveness.
It was probably the strongest marriage I've ever seen in show business, no, unquestionably.
The partnership was great because I would come on stage and do my all, and then we'd go out to dinner. It wasn't me that was the raconteur. It was Bobby, and you'd all be glued to him. And it made my job
Who wore the
easy.
trousers, Cilla, in that?
Oh,
in the end?
definitely Bobby. Honestly.
Really?
Oh, gosh, yeah, yeah. He was the one that made me get my nose job done. Yeah, he was.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah,
What, he
absolutely.
ordered you to have a nose job?
Oh, well, if you'd have seen
Is
me...
that the offending nose?
No, how dare you? How very dare you?
I was just curious. I mean, it looks very nice to me. I mean, what's wrong with that? And did Bobby then move on to other parts of your body for improvement? Or?
Frequently. No,
I mean,
it was only the nose.
Without being too personal, Cilla, how much of the current Cilla I see before me was the Cilla that was the way nature intended?
Oh, yes. Do you
We know
kiss
she's
your
had a nose
mother
job,
with
I'm
that
just
mouth?
pursuing
Well,
it.
I'd tell you anything else. I really would tell you anything else. Because I don't think it's a bad thing to have stuff done. I've never had Botox or anything like that. I've had the thermage.
Pardon?
It's called a thermage.
Sounds
But
extraordinary.
it's non-invasive. It's like, you know, a laser thing that they do on your face.
Right.
So I've had that. Didn't work.
Part of your charm, I would argue, right from the start, was that you were quite unconventional in the way you looked. You weren't just another stick insect model with that classic look. You were unconventional in your looks.
Actually, I was quite skinny at one stage.
There you are. I mean, that is
Yeah, I'm
magnificent,
wearing
Cilla,
very...
I've got to say.
No, they aren't my boobs.
I mean...
They are so not my boobs.
What is going on there?
They are so not my boobs. They had those bras that went, you know, round, like a Madonna bra. You know, those pointy things? That's what you're seeing. No. No, that's not me. That's the bra. That's the bra.
Do you think that Cilla Black would have succeeded if that was the start of your career was this week in television? Do you think that you could succeed looking like that in the modern generation?
You're not going to get a no from me on this. Yes, I would be successful looking like that. If you've got the talent, if you've got the talent, talent will out. You will succeed. If you want to stay at the top, then you've really got to work at it, and you've really got to be talented. So be warned, Piers.
Thank you for that. I hope you aren't about to tell me Biggins made an offer you couldn't refuse, because I'm not ready for that.
Actually, it's a funny thing you should say.
Do you feel, Cilla, that you can ever really move on from Bobby? I mean, will there ever be another man in your life to even come close to that, do you think?
I very much miss being part of a couple. I really do.
Is it lonely?
Miss part of a couple.
Even now, 10 years
you know, one thing that happened to me, it was so funny. Once Bobby had gone, I had a different kind of social life, which meant I didn't live in Denham all the time. You know, I was living in Westminster. So I got an interior designer in, and, you know, she did my bedroom. And I remember showing Biggins the finished thing that my interior designer had done. And he said to me, "Aren't you lonely in this bed?" And I thought, and I said, "No, Biggins, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely." And I'm not really, because I've been blessed with my family, my grandchildren, and fabulous friends who really looked after me.
I hope you aren't about to tell me Biggins made an offer you couldn't refuse, because I'm not ready for that.
Actually, it's a funny thing you should say. And he meant it, though. He meant it.
I've got to hear this. How did he phrase it?
Oh, well, I'll help you out, you know, if you're,
The bed's too big, Cilla.
Yes, he
Christopher
did.
Biggins offered to help you out in a...
propositioned
in
me.
a carnal way.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, he did. Yes,
That's very
he did.
generous of him, but, I mean, were you tempted, or...?
But that is totally true. Whether he was joking about it, I don't know, but I mean, he had a serious look in his eye.
Despite 46 years in the business, Cilla, I think we've shown tonight in this interview there are so many other sides to you.
Bobby's death had been a crushing blow to Cilla.
It was hard for her to rebuild, but I think she's done it brick by brick.
She's taken the bit between her teeth and is living her life and having fun. And I know she's having fun because I've been with her when she's having it.
I just want her to be happy, you know, and to enjoy her life. I mean, she deserves to be happy.
Now Cilla has entered a new chapter in her life.
It would be nice if she had a companion, if she fell in love. I've no idea whether that could ever happen. Bobby is a tough act to follow.
And Cilla being Cilla, she's never stopped entertaining.
This is somebody who's never forgotten how to do it. She knows how to do it, and she'll never forget how to do it.
Something she proved at the Royal Variety Performance in 2001.
You know, Cilla really had the ball. I mean, she's never worn an outfit like that, not since the 60s when she used to do the Cilla show and stuff like that. She's got fabulous legs, and if you've got great legs, why not show them?
Her choice of outfit left little to the imagination.
Some of the female columnists were vile about her, but they brought their roof in.
It's the first time and only time I'll compare Cilla to Madonna, but I think that they're not that dissimilar. You know, for every new generation, she has reinvented herself.
Whether we're alone together or whether we're with a group of people, it is never dull.
She's worked all her life, since, you know, her teens, and had a pretty good run, and I think she should enjoy herself.
She'd be a great brothel madam, Cilla. She would. When I retire and I open a brothel, which I'm going to have Cilla as me madam.
I have to ask you, that outfit, what the hell were you thinking?
Well, you've got to remember, I was playing a part, and it was from the musical Gypsy. So Barbara Windsor, myself, and Paul were playing, you know, three old slappers. And so I got into the part. It wasn't like we dressed up like that just because we wanted to. And anyway, I blamed Jeff Thacker, because Jeff Thacker, who produced the Royal Command that year, you know, kept telling Stephen, my stylist, to cut the legs up. And the more he went, cut it up, I would be pulling them down. But when I got into it, I did feel like an old slapper. And I played it like the way...
It was very funny. I mean, what did you think of the whole age debate thing about older women not getting good stuff on TV, and Arlene Phillips getting sacked from Strictly Come Dancing and so on? What's your view of that?
Oh, gosh, this is a toughie, isn't it? You know, being me and my age. The only way I can answer this question... I mean, take you, for instance. Somebody, please. But Piers, it gets back to the talent thing again. If you are really talented, then you are irreplaceable. Now, for instance, somebody like you, with your talent, and you've got it, you know, your journalistic skills and everything, but I have to say, if Jude Law had the same skills, I'd much rather be with him than you. But so I like looking at... I don't want to look at old people on the telly.
Hang on,
I like looking at nice people.
Is it like Law of the Jungle, then, really, television, where actually, you know, if you do get on a bit, then, sorry, mate, as a young whippersnapper, move over.
Look, I'd rather watch a multi-talented younger person.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying really is there's nothing wrong with good-looking people on TV. I mean, why not, right?
Absolutely not. I'm a pensioner. I'm desperate.
How do you think the public in Britain will remember you in years to come? TV star, singer, personality?
Probably for television. Really, probably for television. Rather, only for the fact that when I was singing, they're probably all dead now.
Cilla, I can't think of a better way to end.
And the film about Cilla Black, called Cilla, will be on ITV Encore New Year's Day at 9. Next, celebrating the tunes of 007, it's the nation's favourite Bond song coming up. But if you want to see the final episode of Downton Abbey, give the ITV Hub a whirl.